It was raining in Lisbon that evening. The streets were shining like mirrors, water running down the old stones. Carlos pulled his coat tight and held on to his umbrella, hurrying to a small cafe near the Praça do Comércio. He wanted nothing more than a hot drink and a bit of cake. When he opened the door, the little bell rang. Warmth and the smell of coffee surrounded him. He shook off the rain and looked for a seat. That's when he saw her. She was by the window, dark hair falling over her shoulders, a notebook open in front of her. Her pen tapped lightly as if it was waiting for words. The rain behind the glass blurred the world outside, but she was clear, alive, glowing. Her eyes lifted for a second and met his. Something held him there, like the whole city had stopped. He bought his coffee and noticed the only empty seat was close to her. He hesitated, then walked over. "Excuse me?" he said. "May I sit here? The other tables are full." She looked up, smiled a little. "Of course." Her voice was warm with the soft accent of Brazil. He sat down, pretending to focus on his drink, but his eyes kept going back to her notebook. "What are you writing?" he asked finally. She studied him for a moment before answering. "Stories, or maybe just pieces of me. I'm not sure yet." "That sounds like something worth reading," he said. Her laugh was quiet, shy but full of life. "Maybe one day. I'm Leticia." "Carlos," he said, shaking her hand. Her touch was gentle but firm. Outside, the rain kept falling, but inside, something new had started. A few days later, Carlos saw her again. She was standing by the wide river, reading a book while the wind played with her hair. "Twice in 1 week," Carlos said, stopping beside her. "I think Lisbon is trying to make us meet." She looked up, surprised, then smiled. "Or maybe it's just small." He pointed at her book. "What are you reading?" "Pessoa," she said, showing him the cover. "I like reading him in Portuguese. It makes me feel closer to here. You're not from Lisbon?" She shook her head. "No, from Rio. I came to study literature, but sometimes I feel like a visitor. Like I don't really belong." Carlos looked at the river. "I was born here, and still, sometimes I feel the same." They walked side by side. She told him about her dream of becoming a writer, about her small rented room full of notebooks. He told her about his work as an architect, how buildings carried memories, just like people. They both laughed at how different yet close their worlds seemed. When the sun began to set, Leticia turned to him. "Do you always come here?" "Only when I need to think." "And what are you thinking now?" she asked softly. He hesitated. "That maybe chance is not chance at all." Her laugh rang out, light and real. For the first time in years, Carlos felt less alone. They started meeting more often, coffee after her classes, walks through the old streets, long talks that stretched late into the night. Carlos realized he was waiting for her smile, her questions, her presence. Yet, deep inside, he carried wounds. Years before, Carlos had been engaged. Her name was Inés, and he thought they would spend their lives together. But she left him for another man. The trust he had built fell apart. Since then, Carlos had built walls inside himself. Strong walls he thought no one could break. Leticia had her own pain. She missed her family in Rio. The smell of the ocean, her mother's voice, her father's jokes. She often told Carlos, "Sometimes I feel invisible here." Like I could vanish and nobody would notice. But Carlos noticed, always. Still, he held back. Every time her eyes searched his, every time she leaned close, He fought the urge to step away. Loving again scared him more than anything. One cold evening, they wandered through Alfama, Lisbon's oldest quarter. The streets were narrow, lanterns hanging low, music of fado spilling from little taverns. Leticia wrapped her scarf around her neck, her cheeks pink from the air. "You look like you belong here," Carlos said. "Like one of those songs was written about you." She laughed. "Or maybe I just pretend well." They stopped at a viewpoint. Below them, the city sparkled with lights, the river glowing under the moon. "Do you write about love?" Carlos asked. "All the time," Leticia answered. "But I never finish. It feels wrong to end love on a page when I don't know how it ends in real life." Carlos looked at her, really looked. Her eyes were bright with the city lights. For a moment, the walls he'd built began to fall. "Maybe some stories are meant to be written together," he said quietly. Her lips parted in surprise. Slowly, she reached for his hand, and he let her. The warmth of her touch filled him with something he thought he had lost. Hope. But he knew time was running. Leticia's student visa was almost over. She would soon have to choose between Portugal and Brazil, and Carlos didn't know if he was brave enough to ask her to stay. The silence grew between them like a shadow. One night in his apartment, Leticia looked at him with eyes full of hurt. "Carlos, what are we? I can't keep pretending this is nothing." He lowered his gaze. "I don't know if I can give you what you need." She shook her head. "You think I want perfect promises? Number. I want honesty. I want courage. I've lost before," he whispered. "And I can't." "You can't what?" "Risk loving me?" Her voice broke. "Maybe I was wrong to believe I was more than just a passing chapter to you." Her words pierced him, but he stayed silent. She left that night, the sound of the door closing, ringing in his empty home. The loneliness returned, heavier than before. Days turned to weeks. Carlos drowned himself in work, staying late at the office, drawing plans for buildings he no longer cared about. But everywhere he saw her, in a laugh on the street, in the rain on his window, in the name Leticia scribbled on a wall. Leticia tried to move on too. She filled her notebooks with darker stories, told herself Carlos was too afraid, too broken. But each night she lay awake, aching with the memory of his hand in hers. Pride kept them apart, though love pulled at them like a tide. It happened one rainy evening. Carlos was walking home when a car lost control on the slippery road. In the blink of an eye, he was on the ground, pain shooting through his body, the world turning black. When he woke, he was in a hospital bed. White walls surrounded him. His head was bandaged, his body heavy with pain. And then he saw her. Leticia sat by his side, eyes swollen from crying. When his eyes opened, she gasped and held his hand. "Carlos," she whispered, tears streaming. "You scared me so much." His throat was dry, his voice weak. "You came." "Of course I came," she said, holding his hand tighter. "How could I stay away?" He looked at her, the last of his walls breaking. "Leticia, I was a fool. I thought I was protecting myself, but I was only pushing you away." She leaned down, pressing her forehead to his hand. "I don't care about your fear. I care about you. I love you, Carlos. I can't hide it anymore." His chest ached, but not from the accident, from the force of the words he had been holding back for too long. "I love you too," he said, his voice breaking. "More than I thought I ever could again." The room felt brighter, as if the storm outside had finally cleared. Carlos healed slowly, but he was not alone. Leticia stayed, helping him take steps again, filling his days with laughter, with warmth. Together, they began to trust again, to believe again, but time was still against them. Her visa was ending. One evening, as they sat by the river, Carlos held her hand and said, "I don't want you to leave. Stay. Not for Lisbon, not for studies. For me. For us." Her eyes searched his, her heart racing. "And if I stay, if I choose you, then I'll spend my life proving you were right," he said softly. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she nodded, smiling through them. "Then I choose you, Carlos." The river flowed in front of them, endless and strong, carrying away doubt and bringing hope. Years later, they walked hand in hand across the great red bridge over the Tagus. The city stretched behind them, full of light and memory. Leticia had published her first book, filled with stories of Lisbon and of love. Carlos had designed buildings that carried her imagination in their lines. Their life was not without struggle, but it was theirs, shared, real, alive. They paused, looking down at the wide river. Carlos whispered, "When the river meets the sea, it doesn't disappear. It becomes something greater." Leticia leaned on him, smiling. "Just like us." And together, they walked forward, their story still being written.